Welcome to Painless Universal Conversation with myself and Welsh. Today we'll be talking to Chantel. Chantel is a business and life coach. What it really inspires me about Chantel is how she's overcome a certain disadvantage she had. She's turned that around and actually used that to find her joy. She made herself better and used that to start publicly speaking, something she never thought she could do. She provides businesses coaching to help business grow and live your dream. For women who are out there thinking about their dreams, what to do next, how do I grow my business? She is the right person for you. She also gives very good advice on Instagram. We're all users of Instagram, but a lot of people are not utilizing Instagram in the right way. She tells us how to move away from just the Instagram, but utilize the Instagram platform to actually start making money. Join me in making Chantel. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Welcome again to Painless Universal Conversation with myself and Welsh. I've got the gorgeous Chantel, the inspirational businesswoman, here to share with me today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. Honestly, it's a pleasure to be here with you today.
And you're all the way, where are you today?
Birmingham.
I was Birmingham right now.
Have you ever been there before? Birmingham.
I have been to Birmingham. They have Selfridges in Birmingham.
We do.
Yes. So that's one
Very
area.
nice.
Yeah. So yeah, I've been to Birmingham just once, and that was it was pleasant. It was different. It was a nice drive there. Stayed overnight and came back the next day. That was lovely. Chantel, I just wanted us to start with a little bit of you telling us of who you are. So I did a bit of introduction, but it's always nice coming from you.
Okay, so I'm Chantel Sachanna, and I've been in the coaching space now for over 3 years. And at the moment, for the past couple of years, I've really had a keen interest in working with women entrepreneurs and really helping them to start and grow. And I think one of the key areas that I really pour a lot of heart and soul into is helping women to realize that they are worthy and deserving of earning the amount of money that they want to make. And I think the reason why I'm so passionate about that is because I think from a couple of years ago, I started to realize that a lot of women that I was working with had ceilings, had all these ceilings and limitations and lack of self-belief on how much money they could actually earn. And so I just kind of decided that I really wanted to break down those limited beliefs and really kind of destroy those ceilings and really help women to realize that all things are possible. And this year alone, I've helped clients get to 7 figures. So I actually got my first client to 7 figures this year, and she got a big NHS contract where she supplies ready-made meals to the NHS, and that's a 7-figure contract. And it was so profound to be a part of that journey and watching her evolve and her realizing that it's actually possible and you can actually go hard. And so that is really what I focus on doing.
Your story didn't start by just you starting to focus on this. Your story also has its own journey. One of the things that fascinates me about you is your journey. You were never someone who thought they could go public speaking and used to stammer, I read. And how did you take being someone who used to stammer to someone now not just mentoring other people, but also going on to tours where you give motivational talks? How did you do that?
I know, it's a crazy journey, and my speech isn't 100%, but I always had a stammer. So I literally, from when I was a child, I remember having speech therapy. I remember being that child in school who just couldn't articulate. I just couldn't speak. I just had lots of issues with getting my words out. It's something that I struggled with my entire life. Up until about 4 or 5 years ago, I stumbled upon personal development. I had never heard of it before. I kind of was always under the belief that you are who you are, and that's that. You know, I didn't know that you could decide who you wanted to be, and that if you had an issue in your life, you couldn't overcome it. I just to be honest, because all the speech therapy I had, they always, you know, told me there is no cure for this, so you just have to learn how to deal with it. And the way that I dealt with it was I silenced myself. And I think it was because when people realized I had a stammer, they would look at me they just didn't expect it. So for me to not have to go through that, I just didn't always speak. I just didn't. It's almost like it was like a dirty little secret, and I didn't want people to know. So lots of times I would just silence myself. So discovering personal development, the first kind of teacher that I found was Les Brown. And I found him on YouTube. I don't even know how I found him, to be perfectly honest. And he just spoke life into me. You know, he said that you don't have to be attached to who you are. You can change. You know, you can be someone new, and you can overcome anything. And then I kind of wanted to play with that idea. And I wanted to play with the idea of, so if I can change anything, can I no longer have this speech impediment? And then he spoke, and then, you know, I came across other teachers who spoke about the power of visualization, and that if you can see it, you can have it. And then again, I started to play around with the idea of just seeing myself speak fluently, because my entire life I had only evidence of me having this speech problem. And so I only ever saw myself as that girl who has a stammer. And so I decided that I was going to start seeing myself speaking fluently. And then some of the visualizations I had was, you know, speaking in front of lots of people, speaking on the phone, because one of my biggest fears was actually making a phone call. It would give me a lot of anxiety. And that's because a lot of the time I would make a phone call, and because I couldn't get my words out, the person would think it was like a prank call, you know, and so a lot of the times the person on the other end would hang up. They would assume it was like a bad line, or I was a prank caller. And so there was a lot of you know, I had a lot of anxiety whenever I had to make a phone call. So just to visualize myself making a phone call, and I would do that every day, and it didn't happen overnight. And I had to make myself really uncomfortable. I had to because for me, another thing was speaking to strangers. So let's say if I was lost, I wouldn't have the courage to ask someone for directions, because it was the fear of, it was that judgment, it was that look that I would get when people saw me struggling to speak. It was just a lot for me. So sometimes I wouldn't ask for stuff. So, you know, I would practice speaking in front of strangers. I would practice just stopping random people on the street and asking them for directions. And then the power of belief. I just truly started to believe that I could overcome this. You know, after decades of being told there was no cure, and also me just not believing that I could overcome it, I decided that I was gonna just believe that I could. And then once I got myself to a space of speaking better, I wanted to share the things that I had learned. You know, I wanted to share, and it started off with me wanting to share with my community. So I started running events in Birmingham, and I just wanted to share this. I wanted to share the idea that you can change who you are, and you don't have to be attached to who you think you are. You can rebirth and choose to be someone new, and you can overcome things, and you can do this. And I just had to share what I had learned. And so that was what got me into events at first, and then coaching, and then the success of the events. I mean, every event was selling out. We had features in the BBC, in the Voice newspaper, and the events were going really well. And so the coaching transitioned into the business coaching, and that was because I was attracting a lot of clients who didn't like their jobs and wanted to turn their passion into profit, the same way I had, you know, when I was running my events as well. And so I transitioned and niched into business coaching because I was just attracting a lot of clients who wanted my support to turn their passion into a profit. And so that's a bit of my journey, and I guess how I got to this
No,
space.
that is truly amazing. But one thing I want to find out from you is that the first day, because I know I have the problem speaking as well. I remember the first day at university, we had to do a presentation, and I was just so petrified about when it came to my turn. I was just absolutely petrified. I will never forget that day. And I said we have to do it in a team, and it got to me. The team said, "And you know what? Just say our names." Got to my turn, I couldn't even say anyone's name. I just didn't remember anyone's name. So I think they realized this girl is she's really going to mess us up. So one of the team members stepped in and started saying the names, because I just absolutely get really nervous and petrified when I speak or when I'm put in position of speaking. So on your point, the first time once you've really started mastering this,
Yeah.
had your major event. Could you recall that time? How did that feel for you?
And I was petrified. I remember when the people were arriving in the room, I went to the corner and I remember saying to myself, what on earth have I agreed to do? I remember I was absolutely petrified. And I just thought, why am I doing this? Because I was so nervous. It was the first time I did any public speaking was at my own event. And I remember I was nervous. And like I said, there was a great feeling of why have I agreed to do this? But then there was a voice that came to me, which thank God was more powerful, and said, Chantel, this isn't about you. This is about them. Because what happened was I got so self-consumed with thinking about me. I'm so nervous. How am I going to do this? That I had to turn that around and realize this event wasn't for me. It was for the people who need to learn what I have learned. And so once I made it about my audience, and I think, to be honest, I'm so grateful that I learned that lesson so early on, because from that point on, all of my business has just been about my clients, my audience. Whenever I'm scared, whenever I'm feeling, oh my goodness, I remember, Chantel, girl, this is not about you. So get out of your own feelings and make it about them. And so that for me was what drove me to just go and run that event. And the event was absolutely amazing and I loved it. Do you know what's crazy? And as soon as I got up there and started to speak, there was a feeling of, this is what I was born to do. I just loved it instantly. All of that fear just went away and I just loved it. And since then, it's crazy how my biggest, I guess, weakness transformed into something I absolutely love to do. I don't know how that happened, but
Oh my goodness. Anyone watching, do get in touch with Chantel. She will tell you her secret, because this is truly amazing. You know, when you talk about your the people who support you, the followers, everyone, these are the people that inspire you to keep speaking when you go on stage. I read an article where you talked about a lot of people are focusing on just having the numbers. They're not transpiring that numbers into really a business, into building a brand.
yeah.
And I saw you give, you say six step in converting Instagram followers into buyers during lockdown, especially now we've been in lockdown. And even though it might be easing, I don't think things will ease very fast. So can you provide some clarity on how to upgrade your Instagram activity for anyone watching? I mean, this is one of the things you do and you do very well. I think I want you just to give some guidance to anyone, so eventually they could come back and say, Chantel, you gave these points, They're great, but I need more details from you on step-by-step guide. How do you turn Instagram followers to
Mm.
now a business?
I think the first thing I do, the first thing I speak to all of my clients, anyone who comes to me for the first time, define your target audience. Like, who is your Instagram for? Who are you here to serve? Because the reality is, you shouldn't be aiming to serve everyone, because then you can't get a clear and defined message if it's so broad. So the moment you can ask yourself, who is my Instagram for and what do they need? It kind of goes back to when I said, make it about them. Always make it about them. So what does my audience need? Like, where are they? What help and support do they need? And create content around that, and always make it about them. And I think one thing that a lot of people do, and I did it when I first started to use Instagram, is I thought Instagram was my space. I thought it was my space. I thought it was my page, and I should post whatever I want to post. And yes, that is true to an extent, but when you're looking at converting, you realize that your Instagram isn't for you, it's for your audience. And so once you can get that, you just need to serve, create value, create content that your audience wants. And also, once you've defined that target audience, create content that they expect in a way that they expect it to be. So for instance, if you have a business but your pictures are pixelated and low resolution and just low quality and a bit boring and bland, like, your audience may not expect it to look like that, and therefore they're not going to follow you, or they won't see you as an authority. Because I truly believe that your job on Instagram is to position yourself as an expert, as an authority. And you do that by creating value, by creating great content that looks good as well. And then I think that's really one of the key ways to get people to buy from you, because people want to buy from experts. If you're a brand, they want to know that you know what you're talking about. And some quick ways that you can do that is just creating high quality content and communicating a message in a way that makes you come across as a real expert. So I think if you can really do that and build your Instagram in total alignment with your audience,
Yeah.
and I mean total alignment with them, then you will grow and you will be seen as a go-to space where they will go to for advice and information. And I think that's a really good place to start.
That's really wonderful. That's really true, actually. When you're consistent, your message is clear,
Yeah.
then it becomes easier because people know where to go for this information rather than going to a place that's not quite sure what your information you're sharing. You have been in this business, you said, for 3 years. What have been some of the challenges you've had to overcome to be where you are now? Because you're quite successful, you do what you do well, you're really helping people transform their lives. But what have been some of the challenges you have to face if someone is looking to follow your footstep in one way or the other? What are some of the major or minor
Yeah.
challenges you face?
I think one of the things that I guess you could see as an error perhaps was, it took me too long to align myself with successful people. So, I come from a certain area where you could define as quite disadvantaged. And so what that meant was my circle were all people who were on a certain level, right? On a certain level. And so, I would always hear people say that your network is your net worth and you need to align yourself with very successful people. But I didn't know where to find these people. And so I think for a long time, my circle was, we were all on the same space. And so for me, what I would say is, as quickly as possible, align yourself with people who are more successful than you as quickly as possible. For me, the game changed when I started to find high level people. And I mean, people who are earning, 7+ figures. And what happened was, the conversations are different when you start to speak to people like that. like the conversations are different. And I remember what it did for me is that they made me feel that I wasn't aiming high enough. So when you align yourself with high level people, they make you need to rise up. And so for me, it was in a short space of time, once aligning myself with high level people. That's not to say that I turned my back on my friends and family. No, like they are still there. But I knew that I needed to step out and meet people who are doing some big things, and people who could mentor me, and people who could coach me and just level up my thinking. And for me, that was a game changer. So as quickly as possible, seek high level people who are where you want to be, because they will show you the way, and they will also make you level up as well. So that is something that I definitely experienced.
Oh, perfect. And our final question brings me to the hope for the future. We've had COVID. It's been difficult for a lot of businesses, people not showing how to get back and how to get themselves back running, or transition to the new world, whatever it might be. What would be your hope for your final message for the future?
I just hope that everybody learns to believe that everything's going to be okay. And I think that sometimes people just need to just chill out and breathe and know that God has got this. And sometimes just hand things to God. I think one thing that I felt during this experience was there was a lot of things that I couldn't control. Loads of us could not control. So I just handed it to God with the absolute faith everything was going to be okay, and recognize that I don't need to know how. Like, I never need to know how I'm going to achieve my goals. All I need to know is that it's going to get done. And so I think sometimes just detach yourself from how, detach yourself from the worry and the stress, and just have faith that God has got you and everything is going to be okay. And sometimes just let God find the way and just keep moving forward. And I just think when you can flow through life like that, there's no stress, because you know that God has got you. So I think for me, I just really felt that my relationship with God over the past few months, especially since this whole experience, has just gone really, really strong, like really strong. And I think it's just developing that faith that everything's going to be okay. And if you can have that faith, I think you'll be onto something.
Thank you so much, Chantel, for joining me. You're inspirational. And anyone who's looking to contact you, how do they get in touch with you?
So follow me on Instagram, Chantel Sachanna, and that's across everything. So the website is www.chantelsachanna. It's that on Facebook. So yeah, literally everywhere, Chantel Sachanna. Put that into Google and you will find me.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. I'm absolutely delighted to have you.
Thank you. A pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
I wish you all the best. Thank you so much.